Picture this. It's Sunday afternoon. The NFL is about to kick off. Let's take a quick tour of the league's biggest markets. New York City, 8 million people. 2 NFL teams. Los Angeles, 4 million people. 2 teams. Chicago, nearly 3 million. Dallas, over 2 million. These are the cities that make sense for professional football. Massive populations. Endless corporate sponsors. Luxury boxes filled with wealthy executives. Media markets worth billions. And then there's Green Bay, Wisconsin. Population just over 100,000 people. That's not a typo, 100,000. For context, that's smaller than most college towns. It's smaller than suburbs you've never heard of. There are high school football stadiums in Texas that hold more people than live in downtown Green Bay. By every single metric that matters in modern professional sports, Green Bay should not have an NFL team. And yet, somehow, sitting in this tiny city is one of the most iconic, successful, and valuable franchises in league history. The Green Bay Packers aren't just surviving, they're thriving. They have one of the longest waiting lists for season tickets on the planet. Their stadium is named after a legend. Their fans are so passionate, they literally buy shares in the team that mean absolutely nothing financially.
The NFL team is offering ownership shares for just the 6th time in history.
Just to feel more connected. So what's going on here? How does a city the size of a suburb hold on to one of the crown jewels of American sports? Because here's the thing. This shouldn't be possible. Professional football abandoned small towns over a century ago. Every other team like Green Bay either folded, moved to bigger cities, or got left behind. Except the Packers. They're still here, still winning, still packing Lambeau Field every single Sunday. This is the story of the NFL's greatest anomaly. A franchise that broke every rule. A team that shouldn't exist in a place that shouldn't work. And somehow, they forced the entire league to bend around them. Before we understand why Green Bay is such an outlier, we need to go back to the beginning. Because when the NFL started, Green Bay actually made perfect sense. In the early 1900s, professional football wasn't what it is today. There were no billion-dollar TV deals, no luxury suites, no primetime matchups under the lights. Football was blue-collar entertainment for blue-collar towns. And the heart of early pro football wasn't New York or Los Angeles, it was the industrial Midwest. Cities like Green Bay, Canton, Akron, Decatur. These were factory towns, steel mills, railroad yards, meatpacking plants. Hard physical work that produced hard physical players. As labor conditions improved, workers started getting Saturday afternoons off. Suddenly, people had free time and a little disposable income. They needed entertainment, and football was perfect. Local businessmen saw an opportunity. A strong football team could unite a town and advertise their company at the same time. So they started sponsoring teams. The Decatur Staleys were literally funded by a food company. The Columbus Panhandles were railroad workers playing under their employer's banner. This was the world the NFL was born into. Small industrial towns, company-sponsored teams. Football before it became big business. In 1919, a guy named Curly Lambeau was working at the Indian Packing Company in Green Bay. Curly had played college football under Newt Rockne at Notre Dame, and he had an idea: start a professional team. The only problem? He didn't have any money for uniforms or equipment. So Curly went to his boss and asked for $500. Shockingly, the company agreed. But there was one condition: the team had to be named after them. And just like that, the Packers were born. Named after a meatpacking company, playing in parks, traveling by bus to neighboring towns. Nothing glamorous, just football. In 1921, the Packers joined the American Professional Football Association, which soon became the NFL. Under this context, Green Bay's presence didn't seem weird at all. It was just another industrial town with a team. They joined as the league's smallest market, but so what? The entire league was made up of small markets. But here's where things get interesting, because almost immediately, those small markets started disappearing. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, the NFL began shifting toward bigger cities. More than 40 teams popped up across the Midwest during the 1920s. Most of them were gone within a few years. Small towns couldn't draw enough fans to break even. They relied entirely on ticket sales and local sponsorships. And when the Great Depression hit in the 1930s, disposable income vanished. Teams went bankrupt overnight. The Decatur Staleys moved to Chicago and became the Bears. That move symbolized where the league was heading, toward major markets with deeper pockets. By every logical measure, Green Bay should have followed the same path. They were small, broke, and isolated. There was a much bigger city just a couple hours south in Milwaukee, facing bankruptcy. But in 1923, Green Bay did something no other team had done. Instead of folding or selling to a private owner who would relocate, they held a community stock sale. Local residents bought shares in the team, not to make money, just to keep the Packers alive. And here's the kicker, it worked. The Packers became publicly owned. This wasn't just a financial band-aid. It was the foundation of what makes them so unique. To this day, the Packers are the only publicly owned team in the NFL. Over 360,000 people hold shares. Those shares don't pay dividends. You can't sell them for profit. You get minimal voting rights. Basically, you're buying a really expensive piece of paper that says you love the Packers. But that piece of paper also means no single person can own enough of the team to move it. The Packers operate as a community-run nonprofit, and that structure would prove to be their greatest asset. The Packers needed those stock sales again in 1935, after the Depression, and once more in 1950. But by then, they had something other struggling small-town teams didn't: championships. 6 of them. Under Curly Lambeau's leadership, the Packers became one of the NFL's first dynasties. They won titles in 1929, 1930, 1931, 1936, 1939, and 1944. That success mattered, because when your team keeps winning, the community stays invested, literally. Without those championships, Green Bay might have let the team fade away, but winning gave them something worth fighting for. After the 1944 title, though, things fell apart. Lambeau left in 1949. The team spiraled into one of the darkest periods in franchise history. They were terrible. Over the next decade, they went 32-74-2. And during this time, a new threat emerged, one that came from down the road: Milwaukee. If the Packers were ever going to move, Milwaukee made all the sense in the world. It was bigger, richer, and way more recognizable nationally. For any normal franchise with a profit-driven owner, the move would have been inevitable. But the Packers weren't normal. Instead of abandoning Green Bay, they turned Milwaukee into a strategic weapon. Starting in the 1930s, the Packers played several home games in Milwaukee every season. By establishing a presence there early, they essentially claimed Milwaukee as Packers territory before anyone else could. It almost backfired. By the 1950s, Milwaukee looked like the better home. Green Bay's old stadium seated barely 25,000 people and was so outdated that players had to dress in a nearby high school. Meanwhile, Milwaukee County Stadium had just opened with double the capacity and modern amenities. The NFL started dropping hints: build a new stadium in Green Bay or move to Milwaukee. For a moment, the Packers' future genuinely hung in the balance. Green Bay responded by building what's now called Lambeau Field. That move saved the team's primary home. But here's the genius part: they kept playing games in Milwaukee, and when the American Football League tried to plant a team in Milwaukee in the 1960s, the Packers had an exclusive lease at Milwaukee County Stadium. Vince Lombardi, who was coach and GM at the time, enforced it immediately and extended the deal. That shut the AFL out completely. A city of 100,000 people had just blocked a major professional sports league from entering a market of nearly 1 million. Let that sink in. The only reason that was possible? Community ownership. No single owner looking to maximize profit, just a team anchored to its city by structure, not choice. And speaking of Lombardi, let's talk about what happened when he arrived in 1959. The Packers were coming off a 1-10-1 season. They were a joke. Lombardi was an assistant coach with the Giants. Nobody expected him to turn things around. He did it in 1 year. Lombardi was tough, demanding, obsessive about winning.
What the hell's going on out here?
His philosophy was simple: winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. And when he did, from 1960 to 1967, the Packers went to 6 NFL championship games and won 5 of them, including the first 2 Super Bowls. Bart Starr, Paul Hornung, Ray Nitschke, these weren't just players, they were legends. And Lombardi was the architect. The Ice Bowl, Super Bowl I, Super Bowl II. These moments didn't just define the Packers, They defined the NFL. Lombardi made Green Bay synonymous with greatness. And then, shockingly, he stepped down as head coach in 1968 to focus on being general manager. A year later, he left for Washington. A year after that, he died of cancer. Just like that, the dynasty was over. What followed was brutal. From 1968 to 1991, the Packers made the playoffs twice in over 2 decades. They had 15 losing seasons. It was the kind of stretch that should have killed the franchise. In any other city, fans would have stopped showing up. The team would have been sold and relocated. But Green Bay's fans kept showing up because they owned the team. They couldn't just walk away. This was their franchise, their investment, their identity. In 1991, the Packers hired Ron Wolf as general manager. Wolf's first move, trade a first-round pick to Atlanta for a backup quarterback with a bad hip and character concerns. A quarterback most doctors said would play maybe 5 or 6 years. That quarterback was Brett Favre. Wolf was so convinced Favre was the guy that he waived the contingency clause in the trade. Even though Favre failed his physical, the trade went through. It was one of the boldest moves in NFL history, and it changed everything. By 1996, the Packers were back on top. They won Super Bowl 31. Favre became a legend, and for the next decade, Green Bay was relevant again. They made the playoffs consistently. They won games. They reminded the world why they mattered. Then, in 2005, with Favre still playing, the Packers drafted his replacement, Aaron Rodgers. Favre was furious, but the Packers had learned their lesson. You can't wait until your Hall of Fame quarterback retires to find the next guy. Rodgers sat for 3 years, and when he finally got his shot, he proved the Packers right. He won MVP. He won a Super Bowl. He became one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. And in 2020, the Packers did it again. They drafted Jordan Love in the first round while Rodgers was still the starter. History repeating itself, because that's what the Packers do. They think long-term. They plan ahead. They can afford to, because they're not beholden to a single owner chasing short-term profits. So here's the thing about modern NFL economics. They've completely flipped the script for Green Bay. Revenue sharing changed everything. National TV deals distribute money evenly across all 32 teams. It doesn't matter if you're in New York or Green Bay, you get the same cut. Market size used to be everything. Now, it barely matters. The bulk of NFL revenue doesn't come from ticket sales anymore. It comes from TV contracts worth billions. That levels the playing field. Green Bay suddenly stands on equal financial footing with Dallas, New York, and Los Angeles. And here's the beautiful irony. The Packers' smallness became an advantage. They don't have competition from other teams. They're not just Green Bay's team. They're Wisconsin's team. They're the only game in town. Their waiting list for season tickets stretches decades. Their brand is international. They're one of the most valuable franchises in sports. The Packers didn't just survive the shift to big markets. They thrived because the league changed the rules to protect them. And why would the NFL do that? Because by the time the league went national, the Packers had become too important to remove. They'd won championships. They'd created legends. They'd helped build the league's credibility in its earliest years. Removing the Packers wasn't just a business decision, it was a cultural one. Taking football away from Green Bay would have meant erasing one of the league's foundations. So the NFL bent. Instead of forcing Green Bay to change, it changed the system to let Green Bay stay. Revenue sharing, salary caps, profit distribution. These weren't just about competitive balance. They were about protecting a tiny city with a massive legacy. That's why the Packers still exist today. Not because it makes business sense, but because the league decided that some things matter more than money. That tradition has value, that a team can belong to a community, not just an owner. Green Bay shouldn't have an NFL team. By every modern standard, this franchise should have folded or relocated decades ago, but it didn't. Because the people who lived there refused to let it happen. They bought shares that meant nothing financially. They showed up to games in sub-zero temperatures. They passed down their loyalty through generations. The Packers aren't just a team. They're proof that professional sports can be something different, that a franchise can be owned by its fans, that a tiny city can hold its own against massive markets, that sometimes the exception proves the rule. In a league dominated by billionaire owners and corporate greed, the Packers stand alone. They're the last link to the NFL's blue-collar roots, a reminder that football wasn't built in boardrooms. It was born in factory towns where the sport mattered long before it paid well. Green Bay still carries that legacy, and they always will, because in Titletown, the team doesn't belong to an owner, it belongs to the people, and that's something no amount of money can ever buy. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to Primetime Sports. More content like this is on the way.